I think Maryland basketball is going to win the Big Ten tournament.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold. So make sure you guys head over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. All-new Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. So let's talk about it. Maryland basketball, I think, is going to win the Big Ten tournament. I'm going to go ahead and get this out the way. I think Maryland's the best team in the Big Ten. I'll tell you that. I've been saying it every podcast. I'll say that to anybody. I think Maryland basketball is the best team in the Big Ten. I think there are a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. I don't think there's a lot of great teams in the Big Ten. Like the SEC, they have some juggernauts, like whether it's Auburn, Bama, like they have some teams at the top that you say they're a little bit different. And I think when you look at the ACC, it's a little bit of the opposite. I think they have Duke at the top, but I think in terms of the middle teams, it's not as good. But I think the Big Ten has a lot of solid teams, but I don't think there's a bunch of great, amazing teams. And some people would argue Michigan State is great. And in terms of record, in terms of what they've done this year on paper, they have been a really good team this year in terms of where they finished in the Big Ten, in terms of the Big Ten standings and how all that went by and getting the number one seed in the Big Ten tournament. And the job Tom Izzo has done with that team has been really good. But when you look at their actual team on paper, when you watch their actual team play, you don't get like super out of this world excited about what the product is on the basketball court. And that's a big reason why I think, I mean, we'll talk more about this later. It's a big reason why I think Tom Izzo did a really good job this year. But when you talk about the actual product on the basketball floor, I don't get blown away. And I think Maryland's the best team. I think Maryland's the most talented team. I don't think Maryland's the deepest team, but I think at its front, at its first couple guys, looking at the team kind of in all, I think Maryland has the most talent out of anybody. And when we're going to talk about making a run in the Big Ten tournament, you're gonna need some talent. You're gonna need one of the best teams, and obviously that there's other good teams. There's other really solid teams in the Big Ten, and even some of the teams that play first round and have to play right away, like in Northwestern, like in Iowa, like in Ohio State, like a USC, even like a Rutgers. Some of those teams are still pretty decent. Like that Rutgers team can be weird to play against because you don't know what's going to happen. I know they're not that good, and I've been down Rutgers all year, and I told people before the season when they got that 25th ranking, I said that's not going to stay. Freshmen, two-star freshmen in a mediocre roster don't win in college basketball. That's just not what it's been, and that's not what I've seen the last couple of years. But you never know what Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey can do, and of course, the teams with the single bye like Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Oregon, I think those are all tournament teams. Indiana, I know, is on more of the bubble, but I would say Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Oregon, unless something has randomly changed, those are all tournament teams. So those are tough teams. And then, of course, I think the biggest reason why I think or not the biggest, I would say the second biggest. I think the biggest reason why is the talent that Maryland has. That's the biggest reason why I'm going to say Maryland's going to win the Big Ten tournament. The second reason is the double bye. The double bye for Maryland basketball is absolutely huge. It got down to it came down to the last game of the season. Like they could have finished anywhere from 2 to 5 at the end of it. And of course, Maryland finished with the 2. But the double bye is huge. And the top 4 seeds, if you guys don't know how it works, if you haven't looked at the bracket, the top 4 seeds in the Big Ten tournament get that double bye. And so I think that the Terps got really lucky, or not really lucky. I think that they really fought to be able to get that double bye. And I think it's going to pay dividends in the future for Maryland basketball because those teams at the top that got the single bye, like in Oregon, like Indiana, like Wisconsin, Illinois, Purdue, they're going to have some battles, and there's probably going to be an upset This is March. And so when you have a single bye, you just don't know what happens. You don't know who comes out hot. You don't know who makes a run. You just don't know. And more than likely, there'll probably be one or two upsets in that round on Thursday, March 13th in that round. And then also what's really tough for the teams that have a single bye, you have to play on Thursday, March 13th, but then you have to go back and play the next day. Like, that's tough. And so when you get down to this time in the year, you have to play a lot of games in a short span of time. And that's the one concern about Maryland. That's the one drawback for Maryland is, do they have enough depth to actually win this thing? Because you're going to be playing, if you want to win, you're going to be playing 3 games in 3 days. Friday, March 14th, you're going to have a game. Saturday, March 15th, you're going to have a game. Sunday, you're going to have the championship if you're going to make it that far. And that is not easy for a Maryland team to be able to do. But I do like our matchup potentially in the second round. More than likely, it looks like we'll get Illinois, or it could be the winner of Ohio State USC. I think we're better than all 3 of those teams. We've beaten all 3 of those teams at a certain point in the year. We smacked Illinois, and I think we match up well with Illinois, and we've kind of done a good job with them. Even last year, if you guys remember, when that was our biggest win of the season, is beating a really solid Illinois team that had a lot of really good players, and one of their best players, Terrence Shannon, was out with all that deal. Not going to get too much into that, but it's an Illinois team. We've played good against, and I think we smacked them this year by like 20 points. And so I think that's not a bad matchup. That looks like that's more than likely the matchup it looks like there for the Terps, which I don't mind that matchup at all for the Terps. And then, excuse me, I said it was Ohio State USC. It's the winner of Ohio State Iowa ends up playing Illinois, but same scenario happens with Iowa, even more so than USC. I thought we handled Iowa even easier than we did USC. We beat Iowa by like 20. We put up 100 on them. So if somehow they ended up beating Ohio State and beating Illinois, that would definitely, I think Maryland would feel pretty good about that. And then I think Ohio State is one that I expect them to beat Iowa, but I think that Ohio State and Illinois are going to battle each other. Ohio State, they get a team that probably to get in, I'm not an expert at this bracketology stuff, but probably to get in has to win the Big Ten tournament. And so you look at an Ohio State team and you say, they're going to battle. They're going to battle, and I think when they play Illinois, that's going to be a battle. And if Ohio State comes out on the right side of things and beats Illinois, beats Iowa in the first round, beats Illinois on Thursday, March 13th in the second round of the Big Ten tournament, that's a tough to go another straight day and play the number 2 seed, the Maryland Terrapins. So I think however you match it up, you play a team that has to play the night before. And I think that kind of works to Maryland's advantage because Maryland's not the deepest team. So it's if you're playing a team that's more tired, you don't have to have as much depth. So I do think that helps the Terps. And I think that allows them to have a really good shot at potentially winning the Big Ten tournament. It's not going to be easy. And then I also just think when I look at the bracket and everything, I just don't see many teams that I'm really scared of. I think later on, when you get down to it, I think Maryland could a couple teams that scare me. I think that this Oregon team, but we avoid Oregon. I think they've been hot lately. I think they're a scary team. I think they're going to cause some havoc in March Madness. I think Purdue's a team that scares me. But really, other than that, I would confidently say that Maryland's better than their opposing team. I never like how we play Purdue. It just feels, I know we had that upset a couple years ago at home, but I just feels like, especially this year, they're just a hard veteran team to beat with Smith at point guard. They have that forward, I'm forgetting his name, that's really solid, that shoots the ball well. It's a tough team to beat, and we potentially could see them in the semifinals. They actually have to play Michigan, and if we look ahead, if Maryland's able to take advantage of playing either Illinois probably, or the winner of Ohio State, Iowa, and then Maryland ends up winning that game in that first round, that quarterfinal, you get to play the winner of probably more than likely Purdue, Michigan, unless USC or Rutgers upsets Purdue. And I think when you look at it, I really like how we played against Michigan. I think we're one of the best matchups against Michigan because we have two bigs that can actually match up with the size, the skill level of Michigan. So I don't mind that. And I think Michigan isn't as good as Purdue even. So I think Purdue's the scariest thing for me. I think I'd rather honestly probably play Michigan than play Purdue. But overall, I do think Maryland has a really good shot at winning this bracket because Michigan State could have a really tough game against either an Indiana team that they lost to early on the season or an Oregon team that I think's a really tough team to be, a team that we lost to on the road. And Michigan State could get that on Friday, March 14th. And I'm not going to act like Illinois or whoever wins the game, like Ohio State, Iowa. I'm not going to act like that's easy. But I just think that Oregon team's special and scary. Illinois definitely got some guys as well. So, and they've turned it up as of late. So it's not easy to win it. There's a reason Maryland's like plus 360 or something to win it. But I do think that the Terps have a pretty good shot at getting it done overall. Let's talk about the Big Ten awards. They came out. Let's talk about who got snubbed, who got what they deserved. All those different things. We'll talk about that next. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded star to the unexpected upset, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in the league play since Kentucky in 1953 to 1954. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Let's talk some of the Big Ten awards. I thought that a lot of stuff went our way, and I thought there was a couple things that I thought could have been changed for the Big Ten awards. But of course, we got to start with how about Derek Queen winning Big Ten Freshman of the Year? That is something that is huge. That's definitely nothing to take lightly this year. Because look at the freshmen in this year's Big Ten. You have the point guard at Illinois. You have the two kids at Rutgers that are probably going to be number 2 and number 3 in the NBA draft, if not 2 of the top 5 picks in the NBA draft. Like, those kids are special. I think those kids are really good. I said it. I thought it more than likely was probably going to go to one of them. But I also said they're not that great, and they also had to battle each other for the award. Like, if there was a odds for this, I think they probably would have been the odds-on favorite to start, and I think Derek Queen would have been right behind them. But Jace Richardson as well at Michigan State turned it up. This was like one of the more stacked years I've seen the Big Ten be in terms of freshmen, in terms of freshman and newcomer talent. And it was really awesome to be able to see Derek Queen not only just win Big Ten Freshman of the Year, but also to win Big Ten, also be first team All Big Ten. That's huge for Derek Queen. That's a huge accomplishment. And this is one of the better freshman years we've seen from a player. From what he did overall, he exceeded my expectations. He was better than I thought he was going to be. I didn't think he was going to be this type of player. I knew he was going to be good, but a kid that averaged 15.7 points per game for us, 75% from the free throw line, 9.2 rebounds per game. Basically, he was almost at a double-double average, a block a game, a steal a game. I thought he was excellent all year. There's plenty of stuff that you can be excited about with Derek Queen in the future, whether you're an NBA scout or you're just a Maryland fan and going into March Madness. There's a lot Derek Queen's able to do, and we might need one of those nights from Derek Queen. But first team All Big Ten and freshman of the year, with some of these other guys like John Tonji at Wisconsin. Braden Smith was the player of the year in the Big Ten. The Tre kid at Purdue, Bryce Williams at Nebraska, all super good players. So a big time award, definitely for Derek Queen to be first team All Big Ten and freshman of the year. Really awesome for Derek Queen. And then third team, Jacoby Gillespie notched a third team appearance for Maryland, which I thought was big. All Big Ten third team. You had some good players on that list. Jaden Aikens at Michigan State, Jace Richardson at Michigan State, who was also up for, I guess, Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Tyler at UCLA, Jackson Shellstad at Oregon. Like, a lot of really good players were up for third team. And Gillespie, I thought, was really good all year. And it's just crazy to think this is it. Like, this is a really good year, and you hope Maryland can be as good next year, but you just don't always get as good of these teams. You usually don't have a big that's going to be first team All Big Ten, and then you get another guard that's third team All Big Ten, and then another big, Julian Reese. Great year for Reese, who was an honorable mention All Big Ten. I thought he had a tremendous year. I thought Julian Reese, he was definitely exactly what we needed him to be. Some nights when the offense, we didn't need him on that side of the ball much, and he would rebound and he'd play good defense. And then the other nights he had games where he had 20 points. And that's why I'm excited for the tournament, because we're going to need him to do different things at different times. And I think that all of our guys kind of fit in that mold where they can drop 20 or they can play in the back seat and do other things well. Same thing with Jacoby Gillespie. He's one of the leaders in the Big Ten in assists. He did a really good job on that. So if his shot's not going, we know he's going to get others involved. Same thing with Julian Reese. And so I'm really glad to see those three guys get into those awards. And then we had the all-freshman team. We had the guard at Illinois. I don't really want to pronounce his name. Then we had Derek Queen at Maryland, Jace Richardson, and the two Rutgers kids, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. So that was nice to see. And then there was also the Sportsmanship Award that went to Celta Miguel, which I honestly am not really sure about that. To be completely honest, I just don't know much about it, but definitely a big time award for him to be able to get. So I thought that was really awesome to see as well for Celta Miguel. I saw Maryland post that on the Instagram. Big Ten Sportsmanship Award honoree. So I guess he was in that mix as one of the guys in that mix. But I do want to say you can't talk about awards without a guy getting snubbed. Rodney Rice, man, I know it's tough to slide him in there, but I thought he deserved at least honorable mention. He was our best player for the last 10 games of the season, I thought, and bailed us out of a couple of games where he really was the offense, like against Michigan State. And I know there's a lot of good players in the Big Ten this year. I just thought that Rodney Rice deserved to be honorable mention. I'm not saying third team, I'm second team, I'm not saying first team. I just thought he deserved at least an honorable mention, but it happens and it's all right. He'll definitely 100% have the opportunity next year to be able to win something like that. So good job from all of our guys. Let's talk about Coach of the Year. It went to Tom Izzo over Kevin Willard. Who deserved it more? We'll talk about that next. Attention Locked On Terps fans, you ever wish you could directly support your favorite school athletes and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing the Maryland fans. And with Roy, you get to choose a player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part is if your players transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Download the Roy app from the App Store and start backing Maryland athletes the way they deserve with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. So I thought Rodney Rice got snubbed, but did Kevin Willard get snubbed for Big Ten Coach of the Year? So I think this is a different conversation. And to me, I saw Maryland fans talking about Kevin Willard should have won Big Ten Coach of the Year. And there's definitely an argument to be made, but to me, I go back and forth. One, it's tough to give it to the coach that doesn't lead their team to the 1 seed in the Big Ten. Especially they won it by like 3 games. So it wasn't like, oh, they barely were the 1 seed or it was like a tie and they got the head-to-head over someone. Like they got that by like a good 3 games. So I did think it deserved to go to Tom Izzo for a couple of different reasons. One, like I just said, they won the Big Ten by 3 games. Like it wasn't close. 2, I don't think this Michigan State team is that crazy. Like in terms of their talent, in terms of their team, I don't think it's that crazy. I think they're like the deepest team in the Big Ten, but I don't think they have a lot of in their lineup. I think that their 2 guards, Jace and the other kid Adkins, I think are good players. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to like go crazy about over there. And so I think the job Tom Izzo did with that team, I thought it was truly special. And I thought it was his best job as a coach. They're probably going to be a 2 seed in the tournament, at worst a 3. I would guess a 2 with how they've put up and everything. But to me, I thought that the job Tom Izzo did was one of his best jobs because we've seen Tom Izzo coach have really good years, but with really extremely talented teams with more than this team. And I thought, to me, this Michigan State team, I don't even think I just didn't think in terms of talent. I didn't think from Michigan State to the next 5 teams, I'm not even sure they're in the top 2 or 3 talented team in the Big Ten. They just figured out ways to win, and that goes to the coach. And so to me, that's the biggest reason why I thought Izzo deserved this award this year. And I have a little bit of kind of feeling towards the not feeling, but I'm not the highest on the Michigan State team. Another person might tell you they're really freaking good. And that Tom Izzo did a really good job at making them really good. In which they are. Some people might say they're more talented than what I think they are. But how I kind of see it is I just think that Maryland is actually better than Michigan State on paper. I think we're more talented. And so you could have said, yeah, Maryland and Kevin Willard could have won Big Ten freshman or Big Ten Coach of the Year with what he did, how he really had success this season after being really down last year. But this Maryland team is really freaking good. And no discredit to Kevin Willard, but he's a really talented roster. I think more talented than Michigan State. And Michigan State didn't sell some of the games that we did. And I think some of it really came down the stretch, really hurt us. So that's kind of how I see the award. But you have plenty of time to go to make up and show you're the better team than Michigan State. But I do think Maryland is the better team this year. But I do think you have an argument to be made both sides. I think the other part about it is you could say preseason Big Ten, Maryland was picked pretty mediocre in the ratings. So you could say in terms of that, you could have a point there, I would say. But that's kind of how I see it overall. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.